Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Timelkov.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited today to welcome a special guest that we highly think of her, and she's doing so many great things. Mahdis Gharaei, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for the invitation. I'm excited to be here and look forward to our conversation. I'm doing well. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, for our listeners, as you know, we're on a mission to give stage to some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world, and really kind of support them with everything we do with the platform we're creating. And you've been carefully selected, so it's not a random that you appear on The Leaders Who Care. For we really honor the work you do, Mahdis, and we wanted to hear your story and some of the advice and guidance you might share with our audience. It will be fantastic. But why don't you tell a little bit about you and how it all started to become the CEO of the Female Factor, and what do you actually do today?
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in a tiny place in Austria in Europe, and my parents had immigrated from Iran. So I kind of grew up between two very different cultures, and always had a passion for, this cross-cultural relationships, and got a lot of inspiration from my family to go into business, actually. So I was always fascinated with everything around doing business across different countries. And when I started my career and I co-founded my first business and got into my first role where I actually had the responsibility over a team and an operation, I kind of noticed that there's not a lot of women around, at least not in the leadership positions. So I started to, on the side, involve myself with nonprofit organizations and different groups. And then I realized that it's just a really important business case, actually, everything around gender diversity, but also other diversity dimensions. And so around 2 years ago, me and my co-founder, we started the Female Factor, and we dedicated this career platform to the next generation of female leaders. So we mainly concentrate on female millennials and those who want to get into their first leadership position and then move up. And we've sort of become this HR platform where we really support companies in finding female talent as well, because we kind of got tired of the excuse that, we tried but couldn't find a woman for this position. Sorry that there's only a certain type of person in the boardroom, let's say. So we kind of want to just mix this up. That's what we do today. We have a job platform. We do diversity and equity, inclusion consulting, and also a lot of events and podcasts, just like yourself right now.
Yeah, fantastic, Madison. What inspired you to do this? How did your journey has unveiled your entrepreneurial background? Is very interesting. I guess you always seems to relate to business, but what triggered this passion to help women to develop further?
This is a story I actually also shared recently in a TEDx talk. So I remember that I was around 9 years old, and we were visiting my family back in Iran in the summer. And I love those times because after dinner, usually the men would sit down in the living room, have tea, and then tell their stories about all these business trips and all the different products and services they were dealing with, and really exciting projects. And I would love listening in on those. And at the same time, I just noticed that the women in my family were not being super involved in those conversations, but they had all the insights themselves as well. Like they were really good at building relationships, making everyone feel really valued and included. And so I kind of wanted to be both in one person. And that's why, yeah, I decided that I'm always going to pursue business. I'm going to study business. I'm going to dive into this topic. But at the same time, I always want to remain this warm-hearted person that puts relationships first.
Fantastic. And this is such a novel mission. I think there's more need of initiatives of this kind. We're seeing a lot more successful entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs that are making a difference. And there's some stats that is really favorable in terms of if you have female leaders on the helm of an organization as well. I believe that we should have a good balance. Maybe if we go the other extreme, could also be another kind of too far. But if we kind of have a good mix and balance the energy, I think this will be really a great way forward. And what do you do today? What are the kind of things you do in terms of initiatives? You mentioned some diversity and inclusion, but if somebody wants to work with you or get some advice, what would you kind of suggest to them if they're just starting out and they don't know what exactly they want to do, which is quite often the case, maybe not as advanced as you are to know where you're heading and what you want to accomplish in the next year or two? Where should they start if somebody's just had a life that didn't work out in terms of career yet, or had a child, but now they're ready to do something with their lives? What would be your advice? How to approach a situation of this kind?
So my number one advice would be to sit down with yourself and reflect on what actually your values are and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you can really connect your personal values with what you do on an everyday basis and how you make a living, let's say. That's the ideal scenario, if you can connect that with the way you make money, let's say. So I would for sure do a value check. And what I also love to work with is actually vision boards. So I made my last vision board, I think around 5 years ago, and it always changes, but you really sit down and visualize where you want to be. And you put different pictures and different quotes on this board, and you see it every day. You can hang it up in your office room or living room or whatever. And that also helps a lot. And what I've also recommend to anyone when it comes to progressing in their career is finding peers and also finding mentors who are already where they would maybe like to be, even if they're not similar in terms of personality or where they're from. It's really valuable to get advice from them and exchange ideas and just have a sparring partner who you can bounce off ideas of. So I highly recommend getting yourself more than just one mentor from different industries, and people are so willing to help. And that's also what we've seen. Like, we started a mentoring program at the Female Factor with, I don't know, about 200 people from completely different industries. And they were so eager to help generation. So you can always ask for help. So summarizing it, I would say, sit down with yourself, be clear on your values, what you want to achieve, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and have it as a vision board up there, and get yourself some good mentors, and then go out there.
Fantastic. I always like this approach. When you look at your strengths and passions, when you unite them, I think there's something magical could happen. But you need to be aware of your weaknesses too, so you know exactly what are the things that you can do and cannot do. And I always say, have a tea or coffee with your heart and mind, and just agree on what you want to do, and based on obviously some logic and passion and strengths that you've developed over the years. Mahdis, in terms of looking at a lot of, I know you're helping a lot of the millennials, but what you're doing is very relevant to Gen Z as well. And we've seen some fantastic breakthroughs with Gen Z, and the level of interest and commitment to make the world a better place from them is phenomenal. I mean, they're refusing to go to traditional work. They want to make the world a better place. They're contributing their time of serving for climate change, for many other things. So they're really taking this, the future of our world, very seriously. Having said that, they're still finding their own way forward. What advice would you give to maybe someone who is starting out, 18, 19, 20 years old, of that amazing journey in life in their 20s? What are the things that have worked with you and didn't work so much, so they can actually take some advice from your experience?
18-year-old self. I think one piece of advice that always worked for me was don't accept no as an answer. Whether it comes to any job opportunity that you want, you might receive a lot of no's in the beginning, but don't feel discouraged through that. It's totally normal. You will get over 500 no's before you get a yes. I also think it's really strong that there is a sense of fairness and sustainability in Gen Z, for sure. That's exactly what we need, but we also need to connect this kind of to the business world, and we need to have a systematic change, so to say. So it's not enough that I have an ideal and I'm like, screw the entire corporations out there. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. I think we need to connect these two worlds, and that's where Gen Z is so relevant. And that's why they have to have a say in all types of companies that they get into. So I would say be strong in terms of your beliefs, but don't become ignorant, and keep everyone's interests in mind, and keep other generations in mind as well, and where they're coming from. And as another tip, I would say, remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. That was my problem, or my challenge when I was younger. I was super impatient, and I used to forget that to enjoy the journey. And I know this quote, it's a marathon, not a sprint, is kind of cheesy and it's out there, but it really is true. And once you realize that, it's such a game changer. So yeah, to enjoy the ride, and not let impatience get the best of you.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing that. And I heard this advice that every CEO or organization, in today's world would benefit from having a Gen Z advisor as well. It is as a way of kind of helping out with how Gen Z work, and how really to engage them even more, because I think that's one of the biggest challenge corporations face, is how do we attract talent, the future talent, what excites them, and how can we set up the conditions that are right for them. And they're changing rapidly, and sometimes they're very simple things that you can do. It's simply asking them, how do you like to work? What's your preferred conditions? What are the tools you need to have? Small things that sometimes for large companies may be a problem. But if we're able to adjust, and especially organizations are being able to adjust some of those elements and provide those tools, a big difference can be created, and organizations can attract a lot more talent. I'm just feeling that a lot of companies are struggling, and since I'm very passionate about business and how we can use business as a positive catalyst, Gen Z and millennials are critical to the connection of the current leadership, and how can we work together to make the world more caring and better world as well. And Mahdis, you're doing so much, and obviously, how does your day look like? Just to kind of understand, from waking up in the morning all the way to the evening. What is your routine?
So I would love to say that I have my perfect routine and I do the same thing every morning, and I'm super organized. That's not the case, to be honest. What I try to do every morning is to stretch and meditate. Otherwise, I would go crazy because we're organized in a remote setting. So everything we do, our team is everywhere in the world, and basically we can work from anywhere. And I think that's been the case also for a lot of people during the pandemic. So yeah, I try to in the morning just have a set of some sort of physical, even if it's not a workout, but at least like stretching. And also in my current company, I'm a co-CEO, so I lead the business with my co-founder, meaning that we have a jour fixe in the morning and in the evening. So we talk a lot because we need to spar on a lot of decisions and a lot of topics. So that's usually my first call in the morning, and then it's honestly a lot of team calls, and also I block some time to get deep work done. I block some time during the week to gain some more knowledge, especially on the topics that are relevant for us. As you mentioned, for example, what the next generation wants in terms of their employers, because that's also something we work on. And then in the evening, I try to spend time with my family, with my friends. And I recently also started belly dancing, just some fun dancing activity to get my mind off. And because I've realized that the hardest part for me is in the evening to really switch off and not think about the business. So I'm trying to mix it up with some activity that forces me to concentrate on that and not on what is going on in the company.
Fantastic. I was just going to ask you, how do you switch? Because you're so passionate about what you do. And sometimes I also find it challenging to switch between things. But I think it's so important that often our families get the worst of us, but they also deserve the best of us. So that's why we need to make sure we make a conscious effort to switch and go home with a clear head and ready to kind of give back, as the most important customer is waiting for us.
Yeah, that's true. Well, at the same time, they're also, I consider my family, they are my coach, they are my, that kind of part of my team. So you can't separate anymore. I feel like we're all one person.
Of course, it's an integrated, you live as one, and but it's also important to be able to manage those situations, so you don't necessarily bring it over all the time. They will help you, but I think it's, I'm glad that you found a way to switch in between, obviously the day and the evening as well. And Mahdis, how do you take care of you? What are the things that you do to energize yourself? Apart from the belly dancing, of course, but what are the things that gives you this joy, gives you this energy after a difficult day or difficult period? How do you recharge?
Well, after a difficult day, I think with any type of difficult situation, I give myself the time to go through all the phases, because, you have a phase where you're sad and angry, and then you just need to make sure to get up again. So basically, I try to carve out some me time, let's say, where I'm just alone by myself. I listen to music or lit up a candle and listen to podcasts, or reflect and journal a bit. But then after that, you need to get up again. That's what resilience is, and you can't stay in that one phase for too long. So how I usually gain energy is honestly spending time with my loved ones. That gives me a lot of energy. Also spending time in nature, even if it's just going for walks if you cannot travel at the moment. And then what I've also found very soothing for myself is being close to water, if it's lake or the ocean, whatever it is. Try to be out there, try to do sports, try to do different activities. We need that. We often forget to nourish our bodies, we nourish our minds all the time with everything we do, with all the knowledge we try to gain, and the type of work we do, that we kind of also forget our bodies. So I try to align there much more than I used to in the past.
No, it's fantastic. There is actually a magic into listening to noises from the nature. It's it's detoxifying, to your body, because if you just walk in the park and you can hear the water, or you can hear the wind of the trees or the bees, these kind of sounds, they're natural and they recharge you. Because in the city we have lights, we have noise, we have air pollution, so this is all builds up. When you go and have those natural noises, that's a fantastic way to recharge. And I love walking a lot myself and listen to great music. And I can always imagine the sea, the olives, the beautiful view, and you can kind of very quickly shift your focus into something very positive. And of course, spend some time with my family as well. It's also a great way to recharge as well. Mahdis, what about what advice would you give to current CEOs of whether this is large corporations or whether this is smaller businesses? What do you think the blind spots that they should be aware of in terms of millennials, especially millennials, because that's what you're dealing with, maybe even the future generation, since that's an area of interest to you, how they should be better prepared and ahead of the rest? What are the things that they need to know and get ready for in order to attract the right people or to make the necessary changes?
To current CEOs, I would pin it down to three things. First, listen. Don't act out of fear. So listen to the next generation, invite them over, introduce, for example, reverse mentoring initiatives. We've seen a lot of good responses in companies that introduced reverse mentoring, meaning that the younger professionals mentored the senior professionals, especially when it came to digital upskilling. They had really good results. So I would say listen to what they need, because they are A, the talent you need, B, they are your customers. You need to listen to them more than to anyone else, I would say, out of your stakeholders, to be honest, because that's who you're catering to. B, I would say be flexible. Today's generation, we seek flexibility. We want to be able to do what we want in the way that is best for us. And that's also how you bring the best out of people, how you really bring the best potential out of them, so to say, if you give them the flexibility. So that's something that a lot of traditional companies have been struggling with in terms of how they organize work, when you're allowed to work, where you're allowed to work. And that is changing. And you need to introduce that flexibility. Otherwise, you're going to lose that workforce that you really need. And then third, I would say, put your money where your mouth is. We've seen a lot of companies, for example, sign pledges and say that they're really standing behind diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when it came to really putting resources and budgets into changing something there, they hold back. They don't do something. So that is a type of, we call it pink washing, that I'm not a fan of personally. So put your money where your mouth is. Don't just say something that you don't mean and where you don't stand behind it, because that's not authentic.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. I think that this Corona and the crisis has exposed so many weaknesses of the old style, the old way of running businesses. And why not young people to have it all? They want to have it all. And I think it's not impossible to be abundant in every area of your life. There's a way to do things, and I think we should really be prepared and create those conditions for them to thrive. And when you do, since we are a great believer in Gen Z and created one of the most advanced programs for Gen Z and give them responsibilities from early days. They're doing fantastic job, at the highest level. When you give them this trust, when you help them out, it takes time to train them, could be a year or two, but after that, that'll be one of your best blessings, to see how your company is going to grow. And of course, you will lose some along the way because that's part of the discovery process. They don't know exactly what they want to do. They want to try many things. But the ones who stay will make a real difference for your organization. So I really concur with you and believe that there's so much that can be done in that field. I have a question here from a close friend of ours, Stoyan Enkov, has just asked, Mahdis, thank you for the great work you do with the female factor. Can you share what is your boldest vision? Where do you see the female factor in 3 to 5 years in the future and the impact it has made?
Great question, Stoyan. Thank you for that. My bold vision for the female factor actually is that the female factor in its form as it is today, where we support women to get leadership roles, is not needed anymore. I do not want our organization to have to exist anymore, because I want a world where this is not necessary, where it's obvious that no matter what gender, identity, age, sexual orientation, physical ability, name it, whoever you are, you have all the opportunities and you have access to the knowledge and to the job opportunities that you need. And there's no one holding you back, and there's no stereotypal thinking, and there's no biases. But as optimistic as I am, I doubt that it's going to happen and be accomplished around the world in the next 3 to 5 years. So my vision for us is that we will at least be on a path to closing this gender leadership gap that we're still dealing with. And I want every organization, every person to understand that it's such a huge opportunity. And I want both men, women, and all types of people to be on board and to drive this mix of thoughts and perspectives, and to thrive in a setting where there's a lot of opinions, and where the world is just colorful. I want more color in the business world. That's to put it in a picture.
Fantastic. Well, what a great way to say, I don't want us to exist because I want the world to become a better, more inclusive and more caring. So we concur with that and believe that's coming. We're very optimistic about the future with all the great things that are happening. Mahdis, what are the things what excites you these days? What are the things that really, give you that energy? And if you had no limits whatsoever, what would you love to do?
If I had no limits, what I would love to do is not different than what I'm doing today, because honestly, I can say that it fulfills me so much. And actually, if there were no limits, it's funny that you say that, because our conference series is called Limitless, and that's how we want to think, and that's how we want to be, because we always say, okay, there's limitless opportunities if we all collaborate together. So what excites me most is actually when we are able to bring people together who didn't know each other, and through our connections, they started their own initiatives, or they found some business similarities and started working together, or they find their next employees, they find their next management team. So that's what excites me. We recently supported a company in having a more gender balanced management. So we recruited talents for them, and to actually see that we were able to accomplish gender parity in a sector that was a fintech company, in that type of branch, let's say, that was exciting for me. That felt kind of limitless to me recently.
I love it. Well, that's inspirational. Keep doing more of this great work, Mahdis. And I'm sure you had a lot of difficult times as well. Or what are the biggest failures that you had to overcome during your career so far?
The biggest failures. So a huge failure that I had in my previous job, I was working in the aviation industry, was that I said yes to taking over. That was the German branch back then. So without thinking further, without listening to my gut feeling, we jumped into this opportunity as it presented itself without doing our research, without understanding the market properly. And we just, it was, in my opinion, a failure. Maybe in terms of numbers, it was not, but it was not authentic to what I actually wanted to do. And that kind of felt like a failure to me. And a recent challenge that I had was actually yesterday. I felt a bit down, let's say, because I gave a TEDx talk in September. I was asked to give a talk, and I really thought long about what I want to speak about. So obviously, I talked about the business case of gender diversity in Europe because we're active in Europe. And I put a lot of preparation, a lot of research together with our team, together with a coach into this talk. And I also shared a personal story, which I usually am not a fan of doing, but I did it because you're supposed to do that on a TEDx stage. And then it was published yesterday, the video, and I made a mistake. I read the comments on YouTube, which you're not supposed to do because they can be mean. There's a lot of trolls out there. But yeah, that was really challenging for me because you put yourself out there, you're vulnerable, and then the internet just slams you in the face, let's say. And what helped me overcome this actually was honestly talking to my family, my friends, but also one of my friends reminded me of listening to Brené Brown podcasts. And there was one conversation she had with Oprah where she talked about doing the same mistake and reading the comments in the TEDx talk section. And she said that don't take that too seriously if people are not in your arena, if other people are not also courageous, putting themselves out there. You don't need to take their feedback into account because it's easy to be on the sideline, hide and anonymously criticize someone. But if you're really being courageous, and that's what leadership is to me, being courageous, putting yourself out there, even if it's not a safe environment, then you're in the arena, and then we can have a conversation and we can have feedback and receive feedback. But yeah, that was a recent challenge I dealt with.
Well, thank you for your advice. So guys, do not read the comments on YouTube. That's the advice we give. And you're absolutely right. There'll always be people who will hate what you do or like what you do. I think it's that's not so important. It's important, obviously, to do the right thing and making a positive difference with what you believe. And of course, we know what's right and wrong. And once we stick with that, the rest is irrelevant. So
I recently read, if you want to make everyone happy, sell chocolate. Don't become a leader.
Yeah.
You're not an astrologer.
Or donate chocolate, even better, because everybody would want, to have a chocolate now. Well, thank you for sharing that, Mahdis. It's perfectly normal, to have this kind of challenges as you grow. The higher you go, the stronger the winds are. So you need to strengthen your muscles to take on a lot more. And I can tell you there's some really big sharks that could want a piece of you. But the way you deal with that is by building muscles and building strength in every area of your life. That's mental, physical, spiritual, financial, relationship wealth, built in every area. And that will give you the strength you need to welcome all the challenges that come with success, because success can be overwhelming, but not if you actually know how to handle it. Someone said to me, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. I don't believe in that. I believe life is like a box of chocolate with a menu, because I know exactly what I'm going to get out by following certain principles in life. And that is when people learn the keys of life. Your life becomes a living wonder. It's not a chance. It's not a mistake. And there's a certain way to do that. So I encourage you, to keep growing and learning and building your every area of your life, and you'll fly through life. You'll be a living wonder. And Mahdis, I wanted to ask you, what is your vision for a more caring world? What is, and what do you envisage for really both short term but also long term? How do you see our world developing in the next 10 to 15 years?
How do I see our world developing? How can we be more caring? I always tell myself to, whatever happens, at least try to be nice. And that's something that I think we've been struggling with, because there's so many topics that are polarizing these days. And obviously that comes with when you have a diverse set of opinions, which is good. But the downside is that we often tend to then stay in our bubble and not go into the conversation with opposing opinions. So I think to remain being nice and neutral, let's say, in a sense, when you communicate, but communicating your standpoint and going into the conversation, which is tough. And it's really tough to have those hard conversations. And I'd also sometimes rather just stay in my bubble and cuddle up on my couch and not have those hard conversations. But that's something that we need to embrace. That's something that we need to teach children at school, that you need to have these hard conversations. Otherwise, we're not going to grow, and we're not going to grow as a society. And the second point for me is for sure that we need to be able to listen to each other more. That's the hardest skill, in my opinion, to actively listen. We often think we're listening, but we're actually not. We're thinking about the next thing that we want to say. And that's something that I personally want to keep working on day to day, to actively listen, because that's all that we humans want. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. And we can only take on our challenges if we collaborate. We've seen that during the pandemic. If there's different countries, there's different expertise coming together and tackling things together. So it's all about collaboration over competition for me. And at the end of the day, I think this golden rule of business, which I was taught, which is treat people the way you want to be treated if you were in their position, that's something we all need to apply, and that's something we can all apply in our day-to-day lives. And to remind ourselves of being that empathetic is crucial, because we're humans, and that's who we are and what we are. So yeah, that would be my focus for our society, to be able to move forward and also tackle all the sustainability issues that we have.
Fantastic. Mahdis, I'm also very inspired about what's coming, and I really want to thank you for the work you're doing. You're an inspiration for so many, not only women, but business leaders and so many others with what you're doing, especially women that may be in a very difficult situation with children. They might not have a career, and they may be late in life, and you're giving them encouragement. And any message towards those really very difficult situations, or women that are really don't see much hope in the short term, how to kind of give them encouragement, and what are the things that they could start doing in their day-to-day life to help improve their lifestyle?
I would say you're not alone. Honestly, no matter how hard your challenges are, and I mean, we are in a very privileged part of the world right now, right? Sitting here in Europe, we don't have war. We have peace. We have access to healthcare, to knowledge. So it is a very privileged small percentage that we're in right now. But the number one advice universally, I would say, ask for help, and you're not alone. There's always people who are willing to help you. Build yourself a network of supporters, and yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. Because to be honest, I'm not a fan of saying you can do it no matter what. Just lean in and it's going to happen. The world is sometimes not fair, and you can lean in as much as you want. You can try your best. You still might not be able to get what you want. You might fail. You might not have access to the opportunities you need. I mean, I want to change that, but the reality is as it is, and our world can be tough. So number one advice, you're not alone. Don't forget that. Don't lose yourself in your own rabbit hole.
Thank you so much for that. And once again, Mahdis, really, any final words for our audience? It's been really fantastic, and thank you for taking the time today to share all this, your experience and advices to our listeners. Any final words from you?
Don't be a stranger. We're here at the Female Factor. Reach out to us if you need a support system, if you need a network, and don't forget to be yourself, and keep your sense of humor as well in this business world. We need it.
I love it. What's the best way to reach out to you if people want to connect with Female Factor?
Just on femalefactor.global on our website, you can reach out, or on LinkedIn or on Instagram, whatever floats your boat.
Fantastic. Mahdis, thank you so much, and God bless you and your family and your work. And it's been a fantastic, really honor the work you do, and thank you for being the leader who cares.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your work as well.